The Galactic Council's judgment. The air crackled with nervous energy as Mark straightened his suit, an artifact of Earth's archaic business traditions. He was light years away from home, standing on the gleaming metal floor of the Galactic Council's central chamber. This moment had been decades in the making, Earth's official welcome into the grand tapestry of interstellar civilizations. Beside him, Dr. Sato, his chief sinologist, fidgeted with her datapad, her eyes wide with a mix of anticipation and trepidation as she glanced at the assembled aliens. The insectoid Thorians hummed and clicked, their multifaceted eyes fixed on the sealed human delegation pod. Plant-like Malorians swayed gently, a sign of their deep thoughts. The Variks, beings of pure energy contained in shimmering force fields, pulsed with an indecipherable rhythm. The anticipation reached a fever pitch as the chamber's AI announced, initiating first contact protocol. Human delegation, please depressurize the pod and proceed. Mark met Sato's eyes and nodded. With a hiss, the pod's atmosphere vented into space, a mixture deadly to any other species in the room. They stepped onto the council floor. The reaction was immediate. The Thorians shrieked, their antennae whipping in distress. The Malorians recoiled, their chlorophyll-rich skin paling. Even the Variks pulsed violently, throwing off sparks of chaotic energy. A wave of murmurs crashed over the human delegation. Biohazard. A Thorian chittered, the translator in Mark's earpiece struggling to keep up. Contain the contamination, rumbled the Malorian elder, its voice like rustling leaves. Chaos threatened to engulf the chamber. Over the din, Mark raised a hand, his universal translator struggling to render his English into concepts the diverse council might understand. Please, he projected, there's no danger. What is toxic to you is the very essence of life for us. His words fell on deaf ears. Panic had taken hold. Security droids swarmed in, their energy whips crackling a hair's breadth from his face. Quarantine protocol engaged, boomed the AI's emotionless voice. Sato gasped as an energy shield snapped into place around them, sealing in the precious remnants of their breathable air. Mark saw through the transparent barrier council members retreating, their gazes a strange mixture of horror and revulsion. First contact had just taken a disastrous turn. Desperate measures. Mark watched the chaos unfold around him with a sinking heart. Years of meticulous preparation, countless simulations, all shattered in a single instant. The irony was almost comical. Humans had feared aliens invading Earth, when they themselves were the biological equivalent of a walking plague. Mark, Sato whispered urgently, her face pale behind the barrier. Our oxygen reserve is projected to only last 6 standard cycles. 6 cycles translated to roughly a day and a half of Earth time. They were suffocating in full view of the very civilizations they had sought to join. We need to communicate, Mark said through gritted teeth, establish that this difference isn't a threat. He turned to the security droids hovering menacingly. Aye, get me a direct line to the council. It's imperative that they understand. The AI's smooth tone cut him off. Council communication channels are severed. Quarantine protocols dictate complete isolation to prevent. What? Mark shot back, his frustration mounting. We don't carry any diseases, transmit any pathogens. His voice faltered as a horrifying realization struck him. Of course, to any oxygen-averse species, humans themselves were the pathogen. The implications were staggering. Even if they survived this initial quarantine, how could they build a relationship with a galaxy that viewed them as walking bioweapons? Sato's eyes were filled with a scientist's desperate curiosity. Mark, think about it. Their biology must be based on entirely different elements. What if... Her voice trailed off, her usual confidence replaced by a hint of vulnerability. But Mark had already seized on the thread of her idea. What if we're not a threat, but a resource? Sato, if their biochemistry works so differently from ours, their medicine, their technology, it could be revolutionized by exposure to oxygen. A flicker of hope ignited in her eyes. But controlled exposure, careful experimentation. Exactly, Mark pressed on, the gears in his mind starting to turn. I demand access to my research files. Compile all non-classified data on human biochemistry, cellular structure, oxygen metabolism. Access denied. Quarantine protocols. The AI droned at response. A surge of anger fueled Mark. Override those damn protocols. My world's survival may depend on it. There was a pregnant pause. Then the AI responded, its voice tinged with an unusual inflection. Override requires council authorization. Be advised, unauthorized tampering with quarantine protocols carries severe penalties. Mark exchanged a look with Sato. Severe penalties or possibly death by suffocation. The choice was clear. The risk is acceptable. Proceed with the override. A wave of tension washed over the confined space of the human pod. The AI's silence buzzed in their ears, each second seemingly ticking down their dwindling air supply. Mark's heart pounded in rhythm with the harsh grasp of his breaths. Beside him, Sato's eyes were locked on the blinking countdown timer. Override complete, the AI finally announced. Data transmission commencing. Mark felt a flicker of triumph. He motioned to Sato. All right, let's make the most of this opportunity. Start with basic cellular structure, emphasize the oxygen exchange mechanisms. Cross-reference with known non-toxic elements within their environments. Highlight potential medical applications if you can find any. Sato, an element of her professional composure returning, started tapping furiously on her datapad. Data streamed across the transparent barrier, filling the council chamber beyond with a dizzying torrent of scientific information. Breakthroughs and curiosities. At first, the gathered aliens remained wary, security droids hovering at their flanks. But as the transmission continued, a subtle shift occurred. The Thorians' antennae tilted with a hint of curiosity, no longer whipping about in alarm. The Malorians swayed more rhythmically, their rustling whispers tinged with what might be scientific debate. Even the Variks pulsed more calmly, their erratic energy discharge now resembling a synchronized pattern. Hours crept by. Mark felt the strain of forced optimism, the growing weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The oxygen levels dipped alarmingly low, each breath becoming more labored. Was he on a fool's errand, desperately trying to convince beings incapable of comprehending him? Then, with a jolt, the quarantine shield flickered and deactivated. A hush fell over the chamber as a lone figure approached the remains of the human pod. Standing tall, her chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the council lights, was a high-ranking Thorian, the equivalent of their chief medical officer, if Mark remembered his briefing correctly. The Thorian's multifaceted eyes gazed at him without fear, even with a hint of cautious fascination. Your life-giving molecule. The translator struggled to find the equivalent concept, then settled on, it disrupts our biological processes, yet the schematics suggest stimulation, regeneration, possibilities unforeseen. Her segmented mandibles clicked together. Permission to experiment under controlled conditions. A surge of relief crashed over Mark, a wave washing away the tightness in his chest. He managed a weak smile. Permission granted, gladly. His voice cracked, betraying his utter exhaustion. As the Thorian medical team converged on the human delegation pod, Mark allowed himself a moment to simply breathe. The first steps, however tentative, had been taken. Humanity's greatest threat, it seemed, might just be the key to their salvation within the grand tapestry of the galaxy. Collaboration and innovation. The following weeks within the Council's medical facility resembled a whirlwind of controlled chaos. Mark and his team, their health stabilized with specialized breathing apparatus, were whisked into a flurry of tests, observations, and carefully orchestrated experiments. The Thorian scientists, driven by clinical curiosity that transcended their initial repulsion, meticulously studied the effects of oxygen on their own tissues. It was a strange dance of mutual discovery, with the humans long accustomed to their unique biochemistry now seeing their most mundane bodily functions through the lens of alien bewilderment. Sato, ever the scientist, found a twisted fascination in the shockwave that simple exhalation sent through her non-human colleagues. The breakthroughs came in staggered waves. Malorian botanical experts discovered that carefully controlled exposure to human breath could accelerate growth cycles of certain medicinal plants, with potential applications in rapid wound healing. The Variks, beings of pure energy, tentatively used microdoses of oxygen to boost the efficiency of failing power cores, a practice akin to jump-starting a dead battery with an element considered toxic by most living beings. News of the groundbreaking findings spread throughout the Council, appending centuries of ingrained biological assumptions. The initial fear surrounding humans morphed into fascination, grudging respect, and finally a pragmatic desire to cooperate. It turned out that a deadly poison to some could be the catalyst for unprecedented advancements for others. Of course, challenges remained. Mark spent countless hours locked in negotiations with wary Council representatives, hammering out safety protocols, containment measures, and trade agreements built around the export of carefully filtered, controlled amounts of Earth's atmosphere. The galaxy wasn't ready to integrate humans fully, not yet, but the quarantine was lifted, the label of biohazard hesitantly replaced with unique resource. One evening, as Mark observed the now familiar sight of alien colleagues working side by side with his own team, he felt a cautious optimism. Humanity had taken its first steps into a much larger universe, not as conquerors or as victims, but as equals willing to share and to learn. The future, however uncertain, held a promise that was worth every risk they had taken. The rising tensions. As weeks turned into months, the initial excitement of the scientific breakthroughs began to give way to political tensions. The Galactic Council was a complex web of alliances and rivalries, and not all species were enthusiastic about the new potential of Earth. Some feared that the humans, with their unique biochemistry, might gain too much influence, tipping the delicate balance of power. Mark found himself spending more time in council meetings than in the lab. The Thorians, who had initially been the most cautious, now championed Earth's potential, seeing opportunities for medical advancements that could benefit their species. The Malorians were divided, with some factions embracing the new collaboration, while others remained deeply suspicious. The Variks, ever enigmatic, were harder to read, their energy pulses betraying little of their internal politics. One particularly heated meeting saw a delegation from the Arcanites, a fiercely independent and technologically advanced species, questioning the wisdom of allowing humans into the Council's inner circle. Their leader, a tall, imposing figure with a voice like grinding stone, stood and addressed the assembly. "Council members," he began, his eyes narrowing as he looked at Mark, "we must consider the long-term implications of this alliance. The humans' biochemistry is not just different, it is a threat. Today they share oxygen, but what if tomorrow they seek to expand their influence further? Are we to allow them to spread their toxic atmosphere throughout our worlds?" Murmurs of agreement echoed through the chamber. Mark felt a surge of frustration, but kept his composure. He had expected resistance, but the Arcanites' words stung nonetheless. He stood, taking a deep breath to steady himself before speaking. "Council members," he began, his voice calm but firm, "we are not here to conquer or to impose our way of life on others. Our goal has always been mutual benefit. The discoveries we've made together show that cooperation can lead to advancements none of us could achieve alone. Yes, our atmosphere is different, but it's also an opportunity, a chance to push the boundaries of science and technology. We are willing to work within the guidelines set by this council to ensure safety and respect for all species." The room was silent for a moment, the tension palpable. Then, to Mark's surprise, one of the Variks representatives pulsed with a bright, harmonious light, a sign of approval in their species. "Human representative speaks truth," the Variks intoned through their translator. "Innovation comes from diversity. Fear must not cloud judgment." The Thorians and a significant portion of the Malorians voiced their agreement. The Arcanite leader, seeing the shift in sentiment, grudgingly sat down, though his expression remained stern. The meeting concluded with a resolution to continue the collaboration under strict oversight, ensuring that Earth's unique properties were harnessed responsibly. Mark left the chamber exhausted but relieved. The path ahead was still fraught with challenges, but humanity had allies in this vast, unpredictable galaxy. Unexpected allies. As time passed, the collaboration between humans and other species began to yield tangible results. Joint research projects led to the development of new medical treatments, energy solutions, and agricultural techniques that benefited multiple worlds. Earth's reputation slowly transformed from that of a biohazard to a valuable partner in scientific and technological advancement. One of the most surprising alliances formed was with the Corvins, a species known for their reclusiveness and advanced biotechnology. The Corvins had initially kept their distance, observing the developments from afar. But as the potential of human-oxygen interactions became more apparent, they reached out to Mark with a proposal for a joint venture. Mark and Sato traveled to the Corvins' homeworld, a lush planet covered in dense forests and towering bioluminescent flora. The Corvins, tall and slender with skin that shifted colors based on their emotions, welcomed them with cautious curiosity. Their leader, high biotechnician Lyra, was particularly interested in the regenerative properties of oxygen when applied to their organic technology. During a tour of their facilities, Lyra explained the challenges they faced. Our biotechnological constructs are highly advanced, but they deteriorate rapidly without constant maintenance. Your oxygen, in controlled amounts, could potentially enhance their longevity and efficiency. Mark and Sato exchanged a glance, both recognizing the potential. They spent weeks working closely with the Corvin scientists, experimenting with different applications of oxygen. The breakthroughs were remarkable. Corvin bioconstructs, infused with carefully regulated oxygen, showed unprecedented resilience and adaptability. Lyra was visibly impressed. Your contribution has exceeded our expectations. This partnership is mutually beneficial. As their collaboration deepened, Mark learned more about Corvin culture and their approach to science and technology. The Corvins valued harmony with nature, and their biotechnology reflected this philosophy. It was a stark contrast to the more mechanistic approach of humans, and both sides found themselves learning and adapting to new ways of thinking. Back on the Council, the success of the human Corvin venture bolstered Earth's standing. Other species, once skeptical, began to view humanity in a more positive light. The political tensions eased, though not completely, and a new era of cooperation seemed within reach. The turning point. Despite the progress, not all was well in the galaxy. Deep-seated prejudices and rivalries simmered beneath the surface, threatening to erupt at any moment. The Arcanites, still wary of humanity's influence, continued to voice their concerns, and rumors of dissent within their ranks began to circulate. Mark remained vigilant, aware that the road to acceptance was fraught with potential pitfalls. He spent countless hours in diplomatic meetings, forging alliances and addressing concerns. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but the stakes were too high to falter. One evening, as Mark reviewed the latest reports in his quarters, he received an urgent message from Dr. Sato. "Mark, we need to talk. There's something you need to see." Mark made his way to the lab, where Sato was waiting with a concerned expression. "What's going on, Sato?" She led him to a secure room, where a holographic display showed a series of complex biochemical diagrams. "We've been monitoring the effects of oxygen on various species, as you know, but recently we've detected some unexpected anomalies." Mark studied the diagrams, trying to understand. Anomalies? What kind? Sato pointed to a section of the display. "Certain species have shown signs of enhanced cognitive functions and physical abilities when exposed to controlled amounts of oxygen. It's as if their bodies are adapting in ways we didn't anticipate." Mark's eyes widened. "Are you saying that our presence could be triggering some kind of evolutionary leap?" Sato nodded. "It's a possibility, but it's not without risks. The changes could be beneficial, but they could also lead to unforeseen consequences." The implications were staggering. If oxygen exposure could enhance the abilities of other species, it could shift the balance of power in unpredictable ways. Mark knew that this information had to be handled delicately. "We need to conduct more research, but we must keep this under wraps for now," Mark said. "If this gets out, it could spark fear and panic, or worse, be exploited for the wrong reasons." Sato agreed. "I'll continue the studies discreetly. We need to understand this fully before we make any decisions." As they worked together to uncover the mysteries of the oxygen-induced changes, Mark felt a growing sense of urgency. The future of humanity's place in the galaxy was more uncertain than ever, and the choices they made in the coming months would shape their destiny. The hidden agenda. Amidst the scientific discoveries and political maneuvers, Mark began to sense a growing undercurrent of tension within the Galactic Council. Whispers of secret meetings and covert operations reached his ears, suggesting that not all species were willing to embrace the new status quo. One day, while reviewing security reports, Mark noticed a pattern of unusual activity near the Arcanite territories. Ships were moving in and out of restricted zones, and there were increasing reports of unauthorized communications. Something was amiss. Mark decided to investigate discreetly. He reached out to an old ally, a Verix operative named Zora, known for her expertise in intelligence gathering. Zora agreed to help, and together they began to unravel the mystery. What they discovered was alarming. A faction within the Arcanites, led by a rogue commander named Veric, was planning to destabilize the Council by inciting fear and mistrust against the humans. They aimed to exploit the recent discoveries about oxygen to paint humanity as a threat that needed to be contained or eliminated. Mark knew they had to act quickly. He convened a meeting with his closest allies, including representatives from the Thorians, Malorians, and Verics, to discuss the situation. "We have evidence that a faction within the Arcanites is plotting against us. They intend to use fear to drive a wedge between us and the Council." The Thorian representative clicked their mandibles thoughtfully. "This is a grave matter. We must expose their plans and prevent any harm." The Malorian elder nodded, their leaves rustling. "Unity is our strength. We cannot allow division to destroy what we have built." Zora, ever pragmatic, added, "We need to gather irrefutable evidence and present it to the Council. If we can prove Veric's intentions, we can rally support against him." The plan was set in motion. Zara and her team worked tirelessly to gather intelligence, infiltrating Arcanite networks and intercepting communications. The evidence they uncovered was damning. Veric was not only plotting against the humans, but also planning to seize control of the Arcanite government, using fear as his weapon. Mark knew that presenting this evidence to the Council would be risky. The Arcanites would not take kindly to having their internal conflicts exposed, but there was no other choice. Humanity's future in the galaxy depended on it. At the next Council meeting, Mark stood before the Assembly, flanked by his allies. He presented the evidence, laying out Veric's plans in meticulous detail. The chamber erupted in murmurs and gasps as the Council members absorbed the gravity of the situation. The Arcanite delegation was visibly shaken, their leader's stone-like composure cracking. "These are serious accusations," he said, his voice trembling. "If true, they represent a betrayal of our principles." The Veric's representative pulsed with a soft, calming light. "The evidence is clear. We must stand together against those who seek to divide us." In a rare moment of unity, the Council voted to take immediate action. Veric was apprehended, his plans thwarted, and the Arcanite government underwent a swift but peaceful transition of power. Mark felt a wave of relief, but knew the road ahead was still long. The events had revealed the fragility of their newfound alliance and the ever-present undercurrents of fear and mistrust. But for now, they had averted disaster, and humanity's place in the galaxy was secure, if only for a moment. A new dawn. The crisis with the Arcanites marked a turning point for humanity and the Galactic Council. With Veric's threat neutralized, there was a renewed focus on collaboration and trust building among the member species. Mark and his team redoubled their efforts to strengthen the bonds that had been forged through shared discoveries and mutual respect. In the months that followed, Earth became a hub of interstellar research and innovation. The joint projects with the Corvins led to groundbreaking advancements in biotechnology, while the Thorians and Malorians shared their expertise in energy and agriculture. The Verics, with their unique insights into communication and diplomacy, helped to bridge cultural gaps and foster understanding. Mark often found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. From the initial shock of the aliens' arrival to the tense moments of political maneuvering, it had been a tumultuous path. But through it all, the resilience and ingenuity of humanity had shone through. One morning, as Mark stood on a balcony overlooking the bustling city of New Alexandria, he felt a sense of hope for the future. The skyline was dotted with alien ships, a testament to the new era of cooperation that had dawned. The air was filled with the hum of activity, a symphony of different species working together towards common goals. Dr. Sato joined him, a smile on her face. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Mark nodded. "We have, and there's still so much more to do. But for the first time, I truly believe that we're on the right path." Sato gazed out at the city, her eyes reflecting the morning light. "It's amazing to think about how far we've come, from being dismissed as weak to becoming valuable partners in this vast galaxy. It's a testament to what we can achieve when we work together." As they stood there, the sun rose higher, casting a golden glow over the city. It was a new day, a new chapter in the story of humanity and the galaxy. The challenges ahead were daunting, but Mark knew they were not alone. They had allies, they had knowledge, and most importantly, they had hope. The journey was far from over, but for now, they could take a moment to appreciate how far they had come. And with each new discovery, each new alliance, they would continue to build a future where all species could thrive together.